The Tabletop Bellhop team is here to answer your gaming and game night questions. Today's question comes from longtime fan and local Windsor gamer, Eggman Jr., who asks, what do you think about the reimagining of older games into new games that keep the theme but update the mechanics like Restoration Games does? Do you enjoy that? What would you like to see more games be updated?
Well, thanks for the great question, Eggman, and for being a fan of the show. I dig it. I like this question. It's kind of interesting. Especially the more I thought about it, the more different aspects of the question I was coming down to. Now, one of the things I thought was interesting is you specifically called out Restoration Games about keeping the theme and updating the mechanics, because they do that, which is totally legit. And for some games, that's exactly what they did, right? Fireball Island, you're still dropping marbles down a plastic island and trying to collect things, and crossbows and catapults. It's pretty much the same thing. Thunder Road was completely revised, but you're still battling on roadways and rolling dice to move. And Dice Tower's a stretch. Dark Tower. Sorry. Dark Tower's a stretch because Dark Tower, they completely changed it from a competitive game to a cooperative game with an AI tower. But the core thing, the tower, is still there. But then other games, they changed around like completely. Like they're almost not recognizable as their original games. And I think the best example of that is what they did was with Unmatched, because Unmatched, and a lot of people I've noticed don't even know this, was originally Star Wars Jedi Duels, which is something that came out like when the original prequel series came out. And the only reason I know about Star Wars Jedi Duels is a local gamer and his son are obsessed with this game and made up their own units and ended up making up rules for every single different action figure out there and stuff, and kind of went hardcore with it. But like most people kind of missed that game because, you know, the episode one hype kind of, you know, where it went. And then currently they have the newest redo of Battle Masters, which is the classic Games Workshop Warhammer Milton Bradley mashup of playing Warhammer on a giant mat on your porch, is being redone as Battle Monsters. So it's kind of interesting to see, like calling out Restoration in particular, because they don't just publish old games identical with new mechanics. They also completely revise and start over from scratch almost on some of these games. And like I said, to the point that to me, some of them are like unrecognizable as the original games.
But like in the case of Unmatched, it's almost the opposite. They keep the gameplay and mechanics and they dump the theme, right? And that made me think of like Shogun versus Wallenstein, right? Like it's they kept the core mechanics and just changed the theme.
See, what I don't know is actually how close the two are. From what I understood with Star Wars Jedi Duels, it wasn't as close to Unmatched, but I don't know. I don't have enough experience with either game.
Yeah. Ditto.
To me, I think this game, this question really comes to sort of that second part of it. So it's the games where, yes, it's Dark Tower, but it isn't the Dark Tower you knew before. It's a new game, but it's Dark Tower, or it's the racing game. And yes, everyone loved Thunder Road, but it was a horrible game. So let's keep the theme and make it a good game. And things like that. That was really what I was feeling for this question.
And if you have any complaints with Sean calling Thunder Road a horrible game, you can send your email to Sean@tabletopbellhop.com. It's a fantastic game. I have it downstairs. It was great for the time.
You just need to tie Sean to a chair and make him play it again.
There you go.
For the time. There's the keywords.
As for updates, like honestly, plain and simple, like what do I think of them? I think it's awesome. Like I think it's fantastic. I love it. To me, it's great to see new life being breathed into old games, and like not just the Restoration. Like Restoration obviously is the company that kind of built itself around doing this, but like Renegade Games now has been scooping up old licenses and making deals with Hasbro, and are now reprinting, re-releasing, and updating a lot of the classic Avalon Hill games like Axis and Allies, Robo Rally, one of my favorite games of all time. And of course, their big baby right now is HeroScape. I cannot believe the amount of expansions they are pumping out for this like plastic miniature game. And then even like Hasbro is doing it on their own. This was a little while back, but like one of their most popular games of all time was Star Wars The Queen's Gambit, which again came out at that prequel. Episode 1 came out and everyone kind of went nuts for it, and then it bombed and the games kind of disappeared off shelves. So the people who got it got really lucky. Well, they actually re-released that as Star Wars Risk, which is another one of those where a lot of people don't realize it's actually a re-theme of Queen's Gambit. And I just honestly think it's great that people get to continue to enjoy these great games And for the most part, the new versions are even better than the original. So you still get the feel of those original games, but with modern mechanics.
Risk Legacy. Done. No, I love that Renegade is picking up those old Avalon Hill licenses. That kind of geeks me out.
Yeah, I think what Restoration is doing is great. There are, however, some other games out there, quote unquote classics from our youth there that people keep trying to redo and put their new twist on and update that don't always work. A perfect example that I have talked about, and no one should ever try and find for a large number of reasons, actually, is the Harry Potter Clue, where they added in player elimination into the game. Yay.
Now, another aspect of this, it's not exactly what Eggman's talking about, but I think also is part of this rebooting board games is new printings of old games that do change things, that improve on the original. Of course, there's all like the deluxe editions of games. There's a ton of those coming out. A lot of really popular games came out 10, 20, 5 years ago, and are just hitting anniversaries now, and they're doing these epic editions or deluxe editions. And most of these tend to have new rules. They usually have improved components, sometimes new gameplay. And I've noticed the most recent trend is throwing in one new expansion just to get those people who collected it all before to still want it because it's got that one thing that you wouldn't have otherwise.
I kind of hate that.
Yeah, I can't decide what I think about that, to be honest. I really can't. And then just like an example of one we saw at Gamma Expo that actually Deanna got to play the original recently at Adam was Cyclades Legendary Edition. Or there's like the updated version of Galaxy Trucker is a good example of this one to me because it actually added new mechanics to it. It actually changed it. Or a game we reviewed recently, Survive the Island, which is an update of Survive Escape from Atlantis with the new publisher, Zygomatic, who did change up some things. Another example is the new printing of World's Fair from Renegade that adds some diversity to the game. And of course, Hasbro's re-release of HeroQuest that now has more content than I could have dreamed of when I was a teenager and obsessed with that game.
So this is where I think we're drifting a little bit from the original question here. I mean, HeroQuest is just HeroQuest. They reprinted. They Xeroxed the original instructions, for God's sakes, and threw them into the box. There really weren't any changes. Now, yes, we are getting new expansions to it, but the mechanics of HeroQuest are just HeroQuest. It's the exact same game. Even World Fair, and they added some diversity in there, and that was well needed. Let me tell you. But I don't think mechanically they actually changed the game at all, did they?
There was a little tiny bit of rebalancing on, I think, 2 of the cards or something like that. Yeah, it was very.
It was such a slight tweak that I didn't feel like that was a new edition at all. Like it was they were going to do a reprint. I love that they updated the art and added some diversity to it, but I don't actually think it fits the nature of the question.
Fair enough. And then interesting, like we're talking about new releases. Just before we went live, there's a new edition of Agricola coming out. I forget what they called it. Deluxe edition. It wasn't deluxe. It was Essential Edition of Agricola coming out from a new publisher again. That looks absolutely fantastic. And yesterday, when I was working on the show notes for this show, CGE announced dropped the bomb of a new 10th anniversary edition of Cone Dames, which I got to say, the cover of the new Cone Dames so destroys the old one. Like, talk about presence when you're in a game store. Now, that just got announced, so I have no idea if they've changed the rules to Code Names at all or if they added new cards, but I was just like surprised by it. Or another one that we weren't allowed to talk about and was eating at me is while we were at Gamma Expo, I happened upon a box that I opened up and it was called Quacks, and it was a new printing of Quacks of Quedlinburg. Again, I don't know what changed, but that was another one that just came back up.
Like
but that
the
new
cover,
version of,
the cover art is different. They changed up some of the art, right? And now it's called
well, it's
Quacks.
a new theme. It's
But
a new theme. It's no longer a medieval fair and people brewing potions. It's something. It's animals somehow.
Oh, okay. It's more different than I thought.
They removed the medieval theme from it.
Interesting.
Now, another thing that I think is kind of interesting with this topic that is, while working on the show notes for this, and I was doing some things, and I was on Board Game Geek, and I remembered at the top of every game at Board Game Geek, you can often find re-implemented by or re-implements. And I can't believe the number of times I'm completely surprised to find out that a game I enjoy is actually a retheme, right? I'll go to log my play, or I'll be trying to grab the info for a review on a like the designer's name or how to spell the artist's name or something. I'm like, wait a minute, this is actually an update. Most recently, I remember that happening when we were working on our Skyrockets Festival of Fire review. I had no clue Kites was a game. I had no idea that flipping sand timers and trying to keep them going was done before. Now it ends up same designer, but that's definitely a re-implementation, a reboot of Kites, changing it to a competitive or a cooperative game for one, and then also having goals and stories. Like, it was a complete reworking. And then I've also had the opposite happen, where I go to log a play for a game and find out that it's been re-implemented. I'm like, oh, there's a new version of this. I didn't know there was a new version of this. An example of that was Attica, which is a really neat older Rio Grande game I really liked, that I guess was reprinted as US Telegraph and completely rethemed from ancient Greece and connecting roads to making telephone lines.
Like, I love Attica. If I logged my plays, that'd probably be one of the ones that I've played the most times. I sat and played it a lot with my sister, and I was excited when I found it because it's out of print. I don't need the other edition. I'm quite happy with mine, but I was happy that I could tell people it existed again. And then I think US Telegraph, and I'm saying existed again in quotes because I think US Telegraph is now also out of print. So I need someone to retheme it a third time.
There you go. No, just overall, I think it's cool. I think it's awesome. I'd love to see more of it. There are games I would love to see reprinted in various ways and updated, and direct reprints don't interest me as much, especially because I've been collecting games for a very long time. So a lot of these games that are getting reprinted, I don't care because I've got the originals. But give me something more. That's what I want. Is I don't just give me like, okay, there's the deluxe edition. Give me all deluxe components. I kind of like that. I can see going for that. Like the new Deluxe Castles Burgundy definitely tempts me, but I would like it better if there's at least something extra in there. One common thing we've been seeing is you get the original game, but now you get the solo rules, or if it was competitive, there's now cooperative rules, or the other way around. I dig seeing things like that when I get board game upgrades or reboots. And the only problem I have with any of this, though, and I've talked about this before, and I know it's 100% a me thing, is whenever a new version of a game comes out and I've got the old version, I stop playing the old version. It somehow feels lesser. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to play this. This is the old version. There's a new shiny version. I don't have the shiny version. I don't want to play this. And I don't know, it's something stuck in my head, right? Now, this isn't so much for the stuff I had as a kid that came back out, right? Like, that's completely different. Like, my version of Thunder Road's such a different game from the new one. I still like my version of Thunder Road. But like the newer stuff, like Cicadi's Legendary Edition is an example of that. Like, when that came out, I'm like, okay, it looks like they did some neat things, but I guess my Cyclades is no good anymore. Or the new version of Galaxy Trucker. Like, I got the new version of Galaxy Trucker, and they did some really cool stuff with it. I don't know. Now I don't want to play my old version of Galaxy Trucker. I'm missing that one. And I know it's totally fine if you choose to update, right? Like, if I buy the new version, there, I can sell the old one. Or if we get a review copy, that happens. But I don't often go out and buy the new revised editions. I just stop playing my old ones.
That's the part that drives me batty. Like, it's not that you're like, well, now that I have the new version, this one is inferior. You're like, now that the new version merely exists, this one is inferior. Like, that is definitely a you problem. Have you considered talking to a therapist?
Not about that.
We're not living inside, like, I've argued this with you for years. We are not living inside some console system. I am not in an N64. The old game is still compatible with this version of reality.
Like I said, I don't know what it is. But it's a thing. Like, it's happened every time a new version of a game comes out. I stop playing the old one.
Well, and I think the real problem is, especially when you don't know, is new versions aren't always better.
True.
There are instances, especially with older games, where things are re-released, things come out and they revamp them and they tweak and they fix and they have made a better version that is not a better game at all. Insert one of 1,000 different USopoly and Monopoly versions. Sorry, USopoly, we love you guys. We love a lot of your games, but a lot of your Monopoly rethemes just aren't really cutting it.
No, I agree. Yeah, and that's like a totally different topic. I don't know what's the difference between a reboot and a retheme, and where it falls in like that. All the different versions of Clue, all the different versions of Monopolies, are those reboots? I guess they are.
Well, I think the big thing is when it changes again. Well, like the question says, when it changes the mechanics. So like when you get to Monopoly and all of a sudden you get rid of the money and you use the electronic debt payments, or
Right.
the Mario Kart version of Monopoly that's got some different
one's supposed to be
mechanics in
good.
there. Whereas if you're just slapping another college name or another city name on your
It's a repaint.
game,
It's
that's
a
just
direct port repaint. Yeah.
Yeah, best board game repaints. We'll do that episode.
No
at
more
some point.
Monopoly.
So I don't know. What about you guys? What do you guys think of reboots? Like, I shared my thoughts. What do you guys think?
Well, okay, I got into this later when in my notes, but I was also thinking of like that line between like, okay, for example, there's a new edition of Tokaido that Stonemaier's putting out, right? And it includes
Mhm.
solo rules plus some quality of life tweaks like reference cards. But at what point is that a new edition? And particularly when companies go under, like say TMG. So we get Yokohama Duel picked up by Synapses, and it's coming out with all new artwork and refined rules. And I have no clue what's changed. It's listed on BGG as the same game. So I feel like that could be an entire debate, an entire episode where we try and figure out like what is the difference between a reboot and a reprint, or like is this a second printing? What's going on? I don't even know. That's an entirely lengthier discussion than I wanted to get into.
Yeah, because a lot of these games, if you're just look, all new components, a box insert, and one of the expansions that used to be separate is now included in the box. That's not like, yes, that's great, and I'm not saying don't buy it. I'm not saying don't buy it. I'm not saying don't enjoy it, especially for new people to the game. But it isn't really changing anything. The game plays exactly the same if you had the old version versus the new version. But then when all of a sudden it's like, oh, we've introduced an app to run the gameplay for you. Okay, well, that's different. That's changing things significantly. Or it's been called out in the chat room already, some of the Gloomhaven to Frosthaven changes, right? They made some adjustments and rule updates with the retheme of the game that you can actually backport into the other game, which is even, that's rare enough outside of the Gloomhaven world. But that's an awesome sort of improvement to mechanics, when you can take those same mechanics and bring them into other games you've had.
Yeah. And it's interesting you brought up the app one, because there are instances where they did that, but it's not a new version of the game. Like Star Wars Imperial Assault was out for, I think, 2 years. And all of a sudden they made an app to drive the game, so you didn't have to play one versus many. And it's a totally new way to play the game. But there wasn't a new game to buy. There was no box to buy. You just downloaded the app and used your existing game. Which I don't even know how that's listed on Board Game Geek.
You can always download the app and get extra stuff from Clank.
Yep.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
I know it's not part of Eggman's question, and we've already mentioned a bunch of these games already, but I just kind of wanted to list off some of at least my favorite games that have been updated that kind of fit this. Now, the first one I realize I'm kind of cheating, but that's okay, because I like to include this on lists, and that's Eclipse Second Dawn for the Galaxy. Because I loved Eclipse. And honestly, back when I was enjoying Eclipse, if you said, what would you do to make this game better? I'd be like, I don't know, it's perfect. Let's just go include the expansions in the box, so I don't have to go spend money to buy cool looking ships, But like, not only does Second Dawn make the game look prettier, which is cool, but not needed, it gave you a big box to hold everything, which is again cool, but not needed, but it actually tweaked the rules. It streamlined the game a bit. It did address some of the overpowered combos people had figured out with the tactiles. Missiles no longer just win the game every time you play. You don't just put the most missiles on your ship to win. Like, it had everything I wanted from an update. And yes, this is not a Restoration Games update, but you know what? It's one of my favorite games of all time. And if Deanna can do it with Zensu, I'm going to do it with Eclipse Second Dawn.
Wait, do I get to slip in Zensu? Is there some new rethemed version out that I haven't heard about?
Or maybe the other way around. Isn't Zensu just kind of like, what is it, Shogi? Shobu, the Japanese chess game? It's kind of a variant. Is it a retheme of Shogi? Now one that we already called out earlier is World's Fair 1893. The reason I think this deserves to be on the list is just because of the fact it happened that they did it. This was an issue where fans pointed out a problem with the game that the designer and publisher were like, oh, wow, we never even thought of that. It didn't enter our mind. We didn't even consider it. Man, egg on our face, and then did something to fix it. And that's why I think it deserves to be centered out, because it's one of the best area majority games out there. Like, second only to like El Grande. It's just such a fantastic game with great card mechanics. The game's just as good, and they re-released it. They took a chance to make it look better. They upgraded the components. They put it in a pretty new box, and they diversified the game. They made some little minor rule tweaks, but then they also dropped the price point to make the game more accessible. I don't know if that's enough to consider it a full reboot, but I want to call it out as something where the company went, well, yeah, we messed that up and fixed it. And that's why I think it's an awesome reboot.
I'll give it to you. I remember I really liked the write-up that they had added to the rule book to incorporate some of the historical stuff. Yeah. It's a reprint. And where's the line between a reprint and a reboot? And again, I'm not going down the rabbit hole.
Now, one came up, wasn't on my initial list, but I thought of it again while working on something else. I had Board Game Geek open and I was trying to find some links. Was Artemis Odyssey, which we reviewed not too long ago. This was from our former sponsor, Grand Gamers Guild, that I really like. And it's a great example of a reboot of Ad Astra, which was originally published by Stronghold Games in that, 10 years ago time frame. With the new version does include rule tweaks, but this is one of the games I wanted to add it on because it specifically does the stuff I mentioned earlier, where it includes solo play, which was not part of the original game. The original game, there's some area majority, so it required 3 players. Well, they put in variant rules for 2 players that work really well, which I think is fantastic. And then they made it look pretty. They gave you plastic ships, and they used Hobbit-sized cards and all the other stuff. And I honestly think Artemis Odyssey is a great example of a company bringing an out-of-print game back into print because the original publisher no longer had the license.
And shining it up in a way that they're actually making it better. Yeah, that's a great one, and I hadn't thought of it at all. Good catch.
So these guys are going on about a lot of great ones. And to be honest, I think they covered it really well. So I'm going to go kind of the other way and drop in some of the duds, the bummers out there. And so we are huge fans of Dice Towers. Games like Shogun, Wallenstein, the fantastic ones. And then they went out there and re-implemented it by making Immortals.
Sean, I wanted to love that game. I really wanted to love that game. I tried so hard.
It was instead a knife fight in a telephone booth. It was just a bad game. And it makes you wonder. Like I would hate to be someone who has played Immortals and goes, oh, wow, yeah, these come from Shogun and Wallenstein, and then be scared of Shogun and Wallenstein because they played Immortals. That would hurt me. Because as much as they really aren't my favorite games the way they are Moe's, I do respect the intricacy and the excellence in Shogun and Wallenstein that was completely taken and destroyed in the making of Immortals.
And I even mentioned Wallenstein earlier, and Immortals did not come into my mind because I think I've cleansed it from my brain.
I'm amused. I kind of still liked it, but I adore the original. So there were parts of that I actually still liked. But yes, that was not the best, and it's kind of ironic because the next thing I was going to bring up is more Queen games. So good segue there, Sean, unintentionally. The entire Steffenfeld City collection from Queen Games. That is a perfect example of older classic games being rebooted, redesigned graphically, then also being redeveloped as games. Steffenfeld sat down and replay tested, redeveloped, and redid these games to make them the best versions of themselves, then re-released them under new names. So I adore the City Collection so far, some games more than others, but I think that is a fantastic example of this being done right. Yes, there might be some licensing stuff, and Feld's doing it to keep his games or his names on the box, whatever. I don't care about all that. I just care the games are good. But I'm going to have to pick one just so I have something to put a link into the show notes. And I'm going to actually go with Vienna. No, it's not my favorite from the City Collection so far, but Vienna, I think, is the best example of a remake like Eggman's talking about, where they took a classic game, La Isla, which I like to call Pokemon, Steffenfeld's version of Pokemon, which is this kind of kiddie game with like cute graphics and cards where you're trying to take pictures of unique creatures that don't exist in the real world. That's why I call it Pokemon. Totally made a new theme of spies in Vienna City and trading in tobacco and stuff to get pieces of evidence, and made it this more detailed set collection game with a new theme. but it still plays like a easel. Like you get the basic feel of surrounding areas to collect resources and fighting for that control. But then Feld's like, okay, you know what? This was a neat core mechanic, and it had to do with getting powers that get replaced on each turn and dealing with what you're held. And went, I'm going to make this a Feld game and make it like up there with, Marrakesh and Hamburg and the harder games, and put the advanced rules in, and they are fantastic. Like, it's no longer a kid's game. It's not even close. Now it's a Feld point salad with lots of ways to get points, where you have to worry about an economy and you have to pay for your workers and you can hire new workers, and there's all these combos. So I got to say, the Stefan Feld City Collection in general, but I'm going to call out Vienna as the best example of a well-done reboot of a classic Feld game.
Yeah, I've yet to have one of those be a miss for me. So the City Collection is a perfect example. The one I was thinking of was Hamburg.
Yep.
So where they changed up, and I cannot remember what
Bruges.
game that Bruges. Thank you. Where they changed up the way you're drawing the cards so that you have a little more control in what colors that you're getting into your hands. It's not just a random draw pile. The tweaks that they made to that game, I enjoyed.
So I'm gonna switch up, and I'm gonna go over to a new one, because this one just came to me, and we were talking earlier about how sometimes you can throw in a bunch of extra bits here and there and it doesn't make a big difference, but sometimes you take all of it, you put it all together, and you swirl it around in a big pot, and you get something that's a big box that's not just a fancy new pieces and fancy things, but all the possible options that existed. And they did that with Castle Panic, the big box, second edition in this case, where they took all those bits and pieces that you could have picked up over the years and put it all together and gave you a rule book that told you how to put it together and how to use them together, or how not to use them together in some cases. And that took Castle Panic, which the initial game, just Castle Panic itself, doesn't do anything at all for me, and turns it into a bunch of really good games with the right combinations available of those expansions, and they were all available in that one big box that made it a great game that was scalable to just about any group you could possibly imagine.
Yeah, no, you're bang on, because that took Castle Panic from a game I didn't care at all about to something that I wanted to play.
Though it did do the thing we were talking about earlier that I liked and it doesn't. They threw in a new expansion that no one had before to entice people who had everything already and collected all the promos from all the cons, to give them something new. And I got to say, that expansion is amazing. It's the quests and something, and I
Crowns and
Sean
Quests.
pulled this. What's it?
Crowns and Quests, which is a totally new way to play the game. It changes it to make it so that every time you play, it's a different adventure, and it's not just kill all the monsters. Check out our review of the Castle Panic Big Box for more information. So next one I have is Survive the Island. Again, we kind of mentioned this one earlier, but I want to call this out because it's an update and replacement for Survive Escape from Atlantis. And I want to call this out as a great modern example of a reboot that's taking like a classic game that's been around since the 80s, that has had multiple revisions and additions put out over the years, each doing something different, still keeping it fresh. Now, the theme's identical, right? You've got the sinking island in the middle, and you're trying to get your meeples off the edge, and the meeples are worth different points, right? So it's still the same game, but they tweak the rules in a few ways. Now, I'm not going to get into the list. If you check out our review for that, because our review on the podcast, whatever episode, there'll be a link in the show notes. I actually detailed every single one of the changes. But what they did is they made the game quicker to teach. They made it actually easier to play by making some of the movements simpler. And they made the game faster because the simpler movement actually makes it easier to move to escape easier. This is all great things for a take that party game. Those are the kind of things you want. You want the game to be simpler, easier to teach, easier to pick up, and over a little quicker. And if you really have the time, you play 2 rounds. Now, an added bonus, they decided we'll throw in something totally new no one's seen before by throwing in kaiju. And they have their own new rules no one's seen. And I think that is amazing. I think it's a great example of keeping an older game fresh by just tweaking it that little bit to keep it interesting.
Yeah, the kaiju made it for me. Guys, how are we not talking about Endeavor Deep Sea? Like, it almost slipped out of my brain, and then at the last minute, I ran in here and I added it to the show notes. I was like, oh, because Endeavor, good game, slightly problematic theming, and they're like, we're gonna do something new with it. And then, I mean, it is such a good game, and isn't it up for, or it won?
It won.
Yeah.
It won the Kenner Spiel des Jahres. Congratulations, Grand Gamers Guild and Burnt Island Games. and everyone else who worked on Endeavor Deep Sea. I think this is 100% deserved. It is one of the best games we played probably in the last 5 years. Like, it is just a fantastic game, the fantastic sense of exploration and accomplishment, and the fact you can play the entire game cooperatively or competitively, and it works just as well. 11 scenarios in the box. Like, and then that's without getting into the environmental impact of the game, with no plastic whatsoever in the game, but still providing you game trays. Like, it's a wonder. And yes, compared to the super colonial game where you could collect slaves but was pretty good, I gotta say it's a pretty good reboot.
Right? This is definitely a reboot. I think it fits the definition perfectly, and it's also a gem of a game.
Yep.
So one that kept the theme a little closer to the original than Endeavor did is Viticulture, the Essential Edition. So this is another sort of version where you've gotten Viticulture, which is a great game sometimes, depending on how you play it, how you set it up, what you've got, what you don't have. And they've taken that and they said, look, here's the box. Here's the box you want. This is the game you want to play. And given it to you all in the 3rd edition, which became the Viticulture Essential Edition.
Yeah, what they actually did there is they mashed up 2 games. They mashed up 2 boxes. There was Viticulture and there was Tuscany. And Tuscany was a bunch of optional modules for Viticulture. So what they did is the Essential Edition took the must-have expansions for Tuscany and put them in the core game box. And the one interesting thing about that, and here's where I still play my old edition, is they sent out a PDF that told you exactly how to create the Essential Edition with a copy of the original in Tuscany, which is what I did. I took my copy of Tuscany, I took my copy of Viticulture, I sorted all the cards. Actually, it was kind of a pain in the butt. Deanna and I did it one day together and sorted it all out and made Viticulture Essential Edition out of my copy of Viticulture in Tuscany. So I think that was an interesting one because it's different than the rest of these games, because it's really just taking what already existed and mixing it in a new way and then selling it as a new product, which is different than the Deluxe Big Box because they didn't just give you everything. They didn't include the Farmers of the Moor expansion. They didn't throw in the extra stuff. They just like picked apart pieces of the game and put out a essential version. And honestly, I think it's one of the best essential edition, because you keep hearing about these other essential editions that are just, big boxes or deluxe copies. I'm like, it really is essential. Like, here's all the stuff we put over Viticulture. This is the essential stuff. The rest you don't need.
So that made something pop into my head, and that's Vinhos, the deluxe edition, right? Yep. Viticulture, Vinhos, it's in my brain. But I haven't played the non-deluxe edition. I don't know if there are any changes in it. From what I remember, though, the fact that they did a redo of the board and the graphics and the E&O tool art made the game just flow better and more playable. Yes. It just made more sense, right? So I'm like, something like that just redoing the board and changing up the icons and stuff can make the game better is, that's a reprint.
Yeah. And to be a little clear, I don't remember the original version, but Vinhos Deluxe actually completely changes a whole bunch of the rules, including the whole way the whole wine tasting works. And it's so different from the original. They actually included the rules to play the original game for people who prefer it. And I forget what they call it, but there's 2 rule books in that box. So you can play the new rebalanced version from Viticulture, or you can play the original Vinhos edition using all the new components.
See, I didn't remember it. It'd been a long time since we actually played it, but I remember being awestruck by the board.
It's like there's 2 different vintages is how it's sold, and there's 2 different books. Another example of that, actually, one of my biggest hidden gem games of all time is Egizia. And Stronghold Games put out a new printing of that, and I don't own this. I wish I did. Where they redid the rules and they tweaked it and fixed the gameplay, but then also included the other side of the board to play the original. And I think that's a great way for these games to get rebooted, especially when they do change a lot. So like when they do re-release the game, it'd be like, I put it this way, it'd be kind of cool if when Restoration redid Thunder Road, you could still play the original board game. They still included the original dice and the original boards, and you could still play that original game. All right, next one I have is similar to one Deanna mentioned earlier with Attica, is a game that needs a new update, another relaunch. Or maybe retheme it. Actually, honestly, I kind of don't want them to. I kind of want to stick with what they do, but it happened because of licensing. So this is a game that lost the license twice and came out. So originally it was released as StarCraft, the board game from Fantasy Flight Games, the first game ever to use deck building, as far as people can tell. a fantastic representation of StarCraft, the video game, and one of, at the time, most asymmetrical games out there. Every faction played completely different. It did it long before Root, where everyone's trying to win different ways. But that went out of print because they lost the license, and they re-released it because at the time they had the Games Workshop license as Forbidden Stars. That is a 40K retheme. But again, they changed everything, right? It's no longer the ground. You don't have any races in Forbidden Stars that feel like Zerg. There's no, it's not quite as asymmetric while still being asymmetric. And I actually adore Forbidden Stars. I think it's a fantastic game. But now we need the new ones. So Fantasy Flight, Atomic Mass, whoever's taking care of that particular line of games, I would love. Corey Knizia, if you're still around, although I think you went indie, put it out in your own company. I would love a re-theme, re-update, redoing version of StarCraft, Forbidden Stars, whatever you want to call that engine. The stacked action token system or something.
So I figured we couldn't have this list without talking about Wingspan, which then led to Wormspan and now Finspan. But there's some significant rule changes. Well, I haven't played Finspan, but from Wingspan to Wormspan, so that's definitely not just a repaint. There was an interesting blog article that came out in the last couple weeks on the Stonemeyer blog with Jamie Stegmeyer talking about how people sometimes accuse them like it's a cash grab, and he's like, if it was a cash grab, I wouldn't have spent 5 years developing the rules and I would have just put some dragons on the cards, guys. So yeah.
The one thing I always wonder about those, like I've only played the two, and the one time we played Wingspan was digital. They don't seem that similar. You're building a tableau, but you do that in lots of games. Like, to me, they're just separate, independent games.
It's true. So there is the thing where they're trying to build off a successful brand, right?
Yes.
Wingspan got a lot of recognition. It's got name recognition. So let's keep going on that with what really is a standalone separate game that could have just been its own thing.
And another example of that would be our friends at Daily Magic Games with the Valeria games, right? Like every Valeria game is very different, but they all have Valeria on the cover.
Yeah, it's more like the universe of Valeria. Those are off each one of them is off doing their very own. Like you think of Thrones of Valeria, Trick Taker versus the Guilds of Valeria versus the original card game. Like those are massively different games.
Yeah, that's true. Massively different, more so than Wingspan and
Worm.
Though we're taking bets on what's next. What's going to be the next band? Someone said Butterfly Span, but I don't think so, with Elizabeth already doing Mariposas as a butterfly game. But maybe she will be interested in developing another one. I doubt it'll have a dropping meeples on the board aspect of it, though. That was a unique butterfly thing. Someone in the chat got to play with the dropping butterflies recently. So, So I do want to call it one. Sean's kind of already went this way, but I was going to do it ahead of time. I planned this. So before we go to the lobby, I did want to call out one that I think did it wrong. The one I'm going to call out is HeroQuest. Sean already said it. They basically photocopied the original rulebook, including typos and the fact that the line of sight diagram's wrong, which means they copied the American translation of the British rules instead of using the original rules to the game, and then totally ignored the fact that all of that was fixed in the 3 expansions that were released in North America, and the start of those expansions explained and had errata in them, and they just skipped all that. Like, they literally just directly copied the US version of the game. And all they did was give me new minis and new art for a game I loved, and I was just bummed. Like, I thought I was getting something more. Now, to be fair, we did the Kickstarter, and I got tons of expansion content, and I got the whatever, Joe Magnanola's adventure and all the other stuff. But like, I wanted an update. I wanted a Restoration Games version of this. I wanted some kind of improvement on the original, or give me the big box. Give me all the original expansions with all the new rules. So there's rules for potions in the core game and stuff like that. I was so disappointed with that. And to be fair, we've only played it once because of that, because it wasn't what I thought I was getting. Like, I wanted a better, improved, streamlined game. Give me a way to change it so the players don't just stand outside the doorway and line up and wait for the bad guys to go to them. You know, fix some of the issues with the game. The game's been out for so many years, and there's so many forums and fan creations and fan rules. I wanted so much more from HeroQuest.
We wanted the Restoration Games version, not the Hasbro version.
Exactly. I was so disappointed in this. As the person who shelled out the cash and bought you this as a gift, I was so psyched about this game, and I was so disappointed in it.
Yeah, like the new heroes are awesome. I do like the new minis. I miss the kind of the Games Workshop vibe the old one had. There's stuff I like, but just I thought I didn't want Restoration to like completely change it, so I didn't want just another dungeon crawler. Somehow it still had to feel like HeroQuest, but I didn't want what we got.
All right, so we've had a very busy chat going on here. This has been fantastic. So we're going right all the way back here. First off, Charlie Brown was asking, does the game have to have gone out of print first? No, we've got a lot of times it has. I think more often than not it will have, in order to be able to re-release it with a massive change and not get into any issues. But it doesn't have to. I mean, Castle Panic is a perfect sort of example of that.
Wormspan, you know.
Yeah, Wormspan's in print. Wingspan's still out there.
Roger Dodger saying March of the Ants was redone. He can't wait to get it. And Shelley Brown saying, does anyone like the re-released Sentinels of the Multiverse? We have the whole first edition. Yes, a lot of people love the new version of Sentinels of the Multiverse.
So Sentinels of the Multiverse original, I did not like. Sentinels of the Multiverse Essential Edition, I fell in love with. Sentinels of Earth Prime, the Mutants and Masterminds version is even better. That's my opinion. I have not tried the definitive edition. Personally, I'm worried that a half-hour game is going to be too short for that. But that's supposedly the big thing. They streamlined it so much you can hammer through it. I'm not sure.
We've got Ryan mentioning Ad Astra becoming Artemis Odyssey, which we talked about. Oh,
that's cool. I missed that.
Wizwar, Consulting Detective, and Monopoly have all been upgraded with different versions.
Yep.
Ryan's saying Chaos in the Old World becoming Cthulhu Death May Die.
No, Chaos in the Old World is not Cthulhu Death May Die.
I played both of those games.
Wars? I think it was re-released as Cthulhu Wars. Cthulhu Death May Die is a miniature heavy, we called it Two-Fisted Pulp Cthulhu, because it was all about killing cultists and trying to defeat elder gods in maps. It was like a dungeon game. Whereas Chaos in the Old World was one of the biggest asymmetric games back when Fantasy Flight had the license. I adore that game. If it came back as anything, it's Cthulhu Wars. But I don't even think that's listed as a variant on Board Game Geek.
Charlie Brown's asking, did they make an update for Waterworks? I don't think so. Not that I'm aware of. I've got 2 copies.
Yeah, there was Building an Elder God.
Yes.
Which was a Call of Cthulhu version of Waterworks.
Oh. Okay.
Jamie Chambers is the designer. Look at me, pull that out of my head. I did not actually say the word and Sean didn't blip me. I cut it off. Yeah, Chaos in the Old World doesn't list anything as being re-implemented. That's a classic Eric Lang game. Which, man, Eric Lang, having sat down watching him game design, should do more Chaos games because they fit.
Fury of Dracula. There's one that keeps getting...
Oh, yeah. They have changed it significantly too, from like tracking where you are on a map to using cards to. It's not a game that I'm all that familiar with. I have the original Games Workshop version that came with little metal miniatures. Played it maybe twice. I did not keep up with that, though. I know some local gamers that love it. Talisman would be another example, actually. Like from the 2nd edition to the newest 5th edition are very different games.
Ratus. Big box edition.
I remember that one being redone.
It's interesting. That's one of those weird ones and where the Board Game Geek can be strange sometimes, because Ratus Big Box is not listed as a re-implementation of Ratus.
Yeah, I'm actually not seeing any other versions of Ratus besides the original. So is that just one they just keep
Big Box is a separate entry that isn't linked to. It's weird.
Ratus, huh?
What else we got here? Ryan saying Star Wars Risk way out of print.
Is it again? It might be. This was not an episode where I went and double checked every game I mentioned.
Charlie Brown, I called this out earlier, talking about the Gloomhaven to Frosthaven upgrade rules. HeroQuest, big missed opportunity to create the modern experience for a new generation.
Heck
100%.
Yeah, 100%.
100%.
I'd still like to see someone take that on.
Yeah. Dragonfire upgrades, vastly improved, almost unplayable Crossfire.
Yeah, Crossfire was a Shadowrun based adventure card game, and they redid it as a fantasy version. And I'm kind of surprised it did so well as the fantasy version, because it lost the Shadowrun license. What was it? Dagger? Sorry, I forget the full name.
Dragonfire upgrade?
Dragonfire, that's it. I'm trying to make a few notes as we go so I can throw some of these into our show notes.
Charlie Brown saying, from your review, it seems like Star Realms. Star Realms is just more stuff. There's not really a...
I don't know. Frontiers, when they put 4 players in the core box instead of it being a 2-player dueling game, and they added the cooperative rules.
It added the cooperative stuff. That counts.
With Frontiers.
Whereas and the Star Trek, as far as I understand, is just a direct re-theme.
Yeah, Star Trek is just
cooperative legacy game.
Yeah, it's just an art swap. Whereas that's the legacy version, which,
Roger saying Discworld was rethemed as Natty Narking.
Okay. That Discworld game, I remember people really hunting for it at one time.
Charlie Brown saying it was sad that the Pathfinder card game went from a good, solid adventure path, Rise of the Rune Lords, to poorer quality editions and eventually failing entirely.
I don't know. The new starter set I found way better than the original, but then it died. The new starter set came out. We reviewed it, and I thought it was way better than the original. They got rid of the whole format where you had to buy 4 different boxes to play through an adventure path and all that stuff. Instead, give you the full adventure path in one box. They did the base game and one adventure path, and then it died. I did enjoy it, but then we discovered Aventuria, and I don't miss it.
I see what Ryan's saying, though. Hero Realms off of Star Realms. Now that's definitely that's definitely a reboot, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Cult Cardboard is saying, just back for the first time ever, Nippon Zaibatsu, which is the re-implementation of Nippon.
Cool. It's a classic game that I know a bit. I think my dad had that one. I look it up for a quick second.
2015 was the original Nippon.
No, so that's not the one my dad had. It's a different Nippon. Oh, yeah, I remember that. That's not one. I didn't get that one. We got Zangwo, and we got the other game that released around the same time and loved them.
And Zangwo is actually another one that we could have called out because it has been re-implemented into a whole new version that apparently improves it quite a bit.
Oh, yeah. That's a good call. Actually, I'd love to try. I love Zangwo. I love the original, so.
What do we got here? Descent. Ryan prefers Descent first edition over second edition.
What about third and fourth or what? No, it's what Legend of the Dark was the most recent.
Yeah.
I actually do. I don't know. That one's hard. So the original Descent was one of those like 3-hour dungeon crawl games, and it was super in depth, and it was kind of like sitting down to Twilight Imperium, and it was kind of fun. Whereas second edition made it like short hour, quick dungeon crawl. And I don't know what I prefer. Like it's a mood thing for me for those 2 versions of the game. Like and the app that they added to the second edition, and the fact they added the legendary version where you actually your heroes leveled up and you kept track and played a full campaign. I'm torn on that one. It depends what I feel like playing, which is why I've kept both.
Someone here is saying, as I jump back, Charlie Brown is saying, an updated Trivial Pursuit. There's a billion Trivial Pursuits out there.
Honestly, I will call out someone we may or may not have an affiliate program with anymore because we can't figure it out. But Outsmarted is actually really well done. Though now it's pretty much switched to just being an app. The board's gone now, and you just each have your own app instead of, I don't know. They did weird things with the second edition, probably based on the feedback from the first edition. But like Trivial Pursuit, it uses an app, so the questions are always up to date. They localize to your country, and you can set your age so that like the kids playing get different questions than the adults. Is just kind of brilliant.
Yeah, they did it right.
And then while adding a time limit.
Ticket to Ride Anniversary Edition.
That's definitely a big, beautiful one, and it did the thing where it included an expansion and included the 1910 set of cards, and then another set of full-size cards were included with it. So I do appreciate that, and I absolutely adore the trains. But the core game's identical, so it just includes one expansion and looks better. But I do
to
like
me,
it.
I'm thinking that's just shiny trains.
Well, it's the addition of the additional decks that are in there is actually really nice. It actually has the promo cards too that have been released so far. Were included in there, the little minor things, but kind of like to me, it's like Castle Panic Big Box, right? They included some of the. It's not like every Ticket to Ride. There's tons of expansions, but it did include ones that do improve the game.
Cult Cardboard saying it seems the classics are getting the bling up. Agricola, Castles of Burgundy, Nippon is mentioned, Rumble Nation.
No, and it's good. Like there are a lot of games that came out like around the year 2000 that were fantastic, and that's kind of why the board game whole thing exploded here in North America, was just how good these games were.
Roger
that I think deserve
that pile.
Yeah, Raw is a great example. 25th Century Games did a big update and are releasing the first expansion in years. Is coming out this year. We got to get an early look at it. Unfortunately, not compatible with my version of Raw, though, because you have to pull tiles from a bag, and the new tiles are larger than the originals.
But there's always new people coming into the hobby, so it's good to see this stuff continue to be put out.
Ryan mentions Struggle of Empires.
Is there a new version of that? That there is a group of my friends that adore Struggle. Early Martin Wallace game. Is there a new version? I'm curious.
Re-implemented by Age of Reason, by Conquest of the Empire.
That's again around 2000, right? 2004 game.
Yeah,
Martin Wallace. Yeah, I played this with Age of Reason, Conquest of the New World. Yeah, so it's been re-implemented a number of times. I couldn't talk about it because I've only played the original, going way back. So. Another, of course, example of a Martin Wallace game was the whole Kickstarter there for the new versions of Brass with the Iron Clays, where they took the grayest, most bland board game ever made that was actually fantastic and put out 2 new games based on it, one adding beer and new resources, completely updating the look, tweaking the rules so you can't basically bankrupt yourself. You can trade in 2 cards to be a wild card so you can always do an action. That is a fantastic example of an upgrade to or a reboot of a classic game. Brass turning into Lancashire and Birmingham, I think, is a fantastic example that I probably should have had on our list.
We have got Johnny Brown saying we need to make reprintings of Valley of Kings, premium or not.
That's a good game. Did it come out again? That's an older one, isn't it? If I'm thinking of the right game. I can't spell, so when I try to look up this stuff quick. Yeah, that's what I thought it was. I have that one downstairs. The AEG Small Box Card Games. That was a solid game. Again, I don't think of it needing a reprint because I still have my copy.
There you go. Cult Cardboard saying, give me a nice version of Torres. Pulling out those tower sections.
Torres did get reprinted at one point because I have the original with the plastic towers, and at some point it did come out as a new printing did come out, and I didn't like what they changed. I think they changed it to wooden. I need to see it. Yeah, see, that's not the one I have.
I think I remember having a discussion on that. Like, wood should be better, but in this case, it didn't.
I know. I have the plastic one, but like the knights are just like wooden cones. They're so boring.
Similarly to the sort of brass topic, we've got someone here. Who's this? Roger Dodger brings up Imperial to Imperial 2030. With a new
that's what I'm curious about. Okay, so speaking of Torres, a new edition of Torres was released in 2023 that totally re-implements Torres. It's Torres Family. I have no idea if it's the same game, but it sure looks like it. Is it trying to show the 2 next to each other? I can't tell. I'm looking at the back of this box, and it looks like it has original Torres and the other, like another version here.
Interesting.
So yeah, look up Torres Family on Board Game Geek. I don't know how different it is. It's not rated very well, I will say. So I don't know. Torres Family features 2 ways to play. The first being the original 2000 Spiel des Jahres winner, but with simplified rules. And then there's a second new version, Impress the King Envoys.
If you've won the Spiel des Jahres, do you really want to simplify your rules?
Yeah, exactly, right?
That's a
2 versions, sure, but leave the first one alone.
Yeah, they tweaked the original one. Odd.
Ryan points out, I'd like to see more games get the essential treatment over big box. I can't disagree there. Really can't disagree.
I would love to see like Essential Root at this point. Like I've never played Root, and I know there's a million expansions. Like, okay, I would no idea where to go. I have the base game downstairs, but if I wanted to go from there, like just let me buy a box that gives me the best of the best.
CO2 and CO2 Second Chance.
Ooh, that's that was a choice.
That was a choice.
That's a reboot. Let's take a really good economic Euro with an environmental theme and turn it into a political statement, and make it co-op. Sort of include the original rules, but not really, because we'll just make it so the world's going to end every time you play.
It's the most miserable board game I've ever played.
Yeah,
interestingly, Second Chance is rated better.
For Misery the game.
Well, you can basically play the original in Second Chance, and then you also have the highly punishing cooperative. I don't know. Some people like it. I think I sold my copy. I'm not positive. I enjoyed the original better.
We've got Dune. Dune is now Rex. But Dune is a lot of things. I mean, yeah, Dune is also new Dune with updated rules. Dune has become a lot of things. So that's definitely one in there.
I don't even know what's the closest to the original. I own the original, but I own it in French, and all the cards are in French, and I've never played it. Welcome to Canada, where you find thrift finds.
And then we've got Battlestar Galactica became Unfathomable, which was a horrible name for a game. Why did they
I
do
have
that?
no interest in Cthulhu, though. That was a disappointment to me. I have the original Battlestar, and I'm glad. I like the theme in Battlestar. Again, as long as no one starts role-playing the characters from the show. But yes, that's a good example.
Ryan mentioning next-gen HeroQuest is Descent, Journeys in the Dark. That's the that's the real upgrade. Right. Ryan wants a BattleTech Crossfire game.
I think that is a game.
And then we've got Chinatown was re-implemented as Waterfall Park, is what you were thinking of, Roger.
Huh.
Chinatown became Waterfall Park in 2023.
That's probably a better theme.
It is not rated as well. Chinatown is still rated better, despite the fact that it's a 26-year-old game.
Yeah, Chinatown was reprinted fairly recently. It did come back in print after many, many years of being out of print.
2019 was the most recent edition.
Yeah, fairly recently, being 6 years ago, 7 years ago.
Well, for a 30-year or 26-year-old game.
I do dig that game. That's like all the different versions of Acquire that have come up over the years. Right. There's even a totally new retheme of Acquire that was put out by, was it Renegade might have put it out?
All right, well, there you have our thoughts on companies updating older games and re-releasing new versions, with some minor changes and others that are barely recognizable. Tell us about your favorite game updates on the Tabletop Bellhop Discord in a comment, or email mo@tabletopbellhop.com. Before you go, though, a reminder that we are currently in the search for a new sponsor.